Hello and greetings from Amsterdam. My name is Sanne Vrijenhoek and I am a project researcher at the University of Amsterdam. And I want to thank you for watching my video where I discuss our paper Recommenders with the mission assessing diversity in news recommendations. So first of all, I would like to talk a little bit about news in general. I don't think I need to clarify that news is important. News has a critical role in helping us construct our views of the world and therefore significantly influences very important decisions that we make, such as who or what we vote for during election time. However, the problem is that there is just so much news to be found everywhere. The New York Times by itself publishes 1,100 articles each day, and no matter how dedicated of a reader you are, there is simply no way that you can keep up with everything that is happening or being said in the world. And because of this, we increasingly rely on news recommender systems, systems that help us filter the enormous amount of information that is available online to just simply those articles that are interesting or relevant to us in some way. But because of this, these recommender systems indirectly also are becoming very important, very influential in determining our views of the world. And many recommender systems, and especially those in the early days, are quite simply systems that look at the items you have interacted or liked before and recommends you items that are similar to that. So a much heard criticism of recommender systems is that it induces so-called filter bubbles. So a bubble where you only see articles about viewpoints that coincide with the beliefs that you already hold, and that you stop being exposed to new things, to things that you have not thought about or encountered before. As such, many organizations are pretty hesitant in the usage of recommender systems, and instead decide to rely simply on manually curated lists. But at the same time, news recommender systems also have a lot of potential. They can help people get more engaged with the news by giving them exactly that what they are looking for. To help people find the right type of news online, some additional metrics for news recommender systems have been constructed. So most notably, the concept of diversity. And I think the most intuitive explanation of diversity is that if you go on Google and you search for a particular term, so here, for example, orange, you should not only get results about one type of orange, let's say the fruit, but also about the color or about the TV show or William of Orange or the river in Namibia. And together with the related concepts, serendipity, novelty, and coverage, together constitute a good recommender system. But if you look at the values or the missions of actual media companies, they are a far cry from these rather simplified evaluation metrics that recommender systems currently have. So, for example, I've copied here the mission statement of the BBC, and they want to provide impartial news to help people understand and engage. They want to help them learn. They want to reflect the diverse community within the United Kingdom. As such, our statement or our idea is that diversity in news recommender systems is not just a single value. It's an aggregate value with many layers and aspects, and it has a mission. And what constitutes good diversity in a recommender systems is very much dependent on the media company that is building the system and what their mission and goal is for their company in general. So this is still a rather abstract interpretation of diversity. And to work with this, we started roughly 2 years ago a project at the University of Amsterdam where we wanted to quantify this idea, to translate the normative notion of diversity into very concrete and measurable metrics. And for this, we started at the social sciences, because media diversity is a concept that has been debated there for, well, decades, with very nuanced theories and discussions. And we think it is something that has not that much been looked at in the recommender system literature. So according to the normative framework of democracy, there are 4 different models that a media company could, well, there are many models, there's actually more than 40 of them, but in our project we have decided to focus on the 4 the biggest or most well-known models. And we decided to take these models as our starting point for what diversity should actually mean. So the first model is the liberal model of democracy. And the liberal model basically says that in the end, the user knows what is best for him or her. And according to this model, it is perfectly fine to give to recommend your user primarily cat videos or royalty news, as long as this is an expression of their personal autonomy. When following a liberal model, the recommender system should focus on allowing the user to specialize in an area of his or her choosing and to really match their preferences. So as you probably understand, most recommender systems would unknowingly be following the liberal model currently. Let's say you are a public service media company and your goal is more to foster a common public sphere, to help people engage with the news and to foster empathy among your readers, then you are more likely to be following the participatory model. And these, as you can see, these values are very different from what a liberal model does, or the goal that it has. Quite similar to the participatory, but still quite different, is the deliberative model, where you really try to focus on fostering discussion. And a recommender system that follows the deliberative model should therefore really focus on providing an equally balanced overview of all the opinions and viewpoints that are out there in society. It should really focus on items that have a rational tone and really, encourage and foster discussions between people with the end goal of, in the end, finding a common consensus or an agreement. And the last model that we have thought about is the critical model, which is mostly a criticism of the deliberative model. It says that it is all perfectly well to have an equal representation of all the viewpoints in society, but not everybody has equal access to the to the media. So therefore, the goal of the critical model would really be to emphasize the voices that would otherwise go unheard in society, that do not have the same opportunities in there. A critical model would really focus on the voices from marginalized groups, as I said, but also on articles that are very, effective, that activate you to actually take action. And all these models, they have their own spear points, their characteristics. And when you really look at them, you kind of see that there are some, things that they have in common with different value ranges. And based on this, we have in our project constructed 5 new diversity metrics. And these are calibration, fragmentation, activation, representation, and alternative voices. So all these things and values combined lead to different expectations for your recommender system, depending on which depending on which model you choose. For each model, a different set of values would become relevant. And our idea is that by comparing your custom recommender system to, for example, a random baseline, you can kind of draw some conclusions about the influence that your recommender system has on the reader. So by comparing the items in your recommender system to, for example, the pool of data that was available, you can see if it unduly or not influences, for example, one particular type of voice in a representation, or that it significantly shows more minority voices than were available. Of course, we know that our approach has a lot of limitations. Most importantly, these are very large oversimplifications of very nuanced and complex subjects and topics that have been debated in the social sciences for decades. So we know that these solutions are not perfect, but at the same time, we think that currently there's not so much regard at all for the social science interpretation. So our goal is really to take these as a starting point for discussion. And if this is not the type of diversity that you're looking for, then what is? And then maybe with, the continued insights into the concept itself, and also more computational developments, we can maybe at some point get to a point where we are happy with our interpretation of diversity. At the same time, it's also a point that the metrics that we have constructed now are purely reflective of what is already in your data set. So it's pretty hard to know what you don't know in that regard, and it's something that also should be considered in the future. Also, the whole concept of values by design research has a lot of limitations. For example, even when slightly optimizing for these values, there will always be a trade-off between more diversity or more profit. And also, recommender systems are not on the news website by itself. They're also they're being used and a part of a whole bigger system with journalists, with editors, with graphic designers, and there's still a lot more that goes into the topic than just merely these different metrics. So our project is still ongoing, at least for a year and a half more. And during this time, we want to continue the formalization of these metrics, think a bit more about their different context and how they should actually be applied, and then test them on a benchmark set with actual user data and news articles. And this is currently in progress. And simultaneously, we are working with media companies who are very interested in the topics and are very curious to see how all of this evolves. So with that, I would like to thank you again very much for watching. As I said, this project is ongoing, so we are very eager to discuss any thoughts or remarks that you might have. It's very much a multidisciplinary research, so all perspectives here are welcome. Yeah, thank you very much for listening.